I'm sorry, ma'am. This pass is not valid for boarding at this time. You'll need to speak with a customer service agent.
The Denver International Airport was bustling with the usual pre-holiday chaos on that Tuesday afternoon in November. Families rushed past each other, business people clutched their carry-ons with practiced efficiency, and the familiar sounds of rolling suitcases and distant announcements created a constant hum of activity. Among this crowd walked 17-year-old Maya Chen, her movements deliberate and measured, her breathing slightly labored despite her efforts to hide it. Maya had dressed carefully for this journey, not in anything flashy, but in comfortable travel clothes that her mother had helped her pick out just 2 days earlier. Navy blue sweatpants, a soft gray hoodie that had become her favorite because of how it didn't irritate her sensitive skin, and white sneakers that were broken in just right. Her long dark hair was tied back in a neat ponytail, and she wore minimal makeup, just enough to look presentable but not so much that it would smudge if she cried, which she very well might, given the circumstances. In her right hand, she clutched her boarding pass like a lifeline. The paper was slightly crumpled from being checked and rechecked at least 20 times since she'd printed it that morning. Flight 487 to Boston, departing at 3:15 p.m., arriving at Logan Airport at 10:47 p.m. She'd memorized every detail. Economy seat 23B, the confirmation number was tattooed in her mind. BX4K7M. This wasn't just any flight. This was the flight that would change everything. Her wheeled luggage, a modest carry-on in soft gray, followed dutifully behind her. It contained everything she needed for the next 2 weeks: medical documents, comfortable clothing, toiletries, her laptop, and a worn copy of The Fault in Our Stars that her best friend had given her with an encouraging note tucked inside the front cover. She hadn't had the courage to read the note yet. The airport terminal seemed to stretch endlessly before her. She'd only been to Denver Airport once before, when she was 12, on a family vacation to ski. That felt like a lifetime ago. Everything felt like a lifetime ago, actually. The past 8 months had warped her sense of time. Months felt like years. Days felt like hours when she was in the hospital receiving chemotherapy. Maya's heart rate accelerated as she approached the gate areas. The departure board overhead showed her flight's gate number, 47. She followed the signs, her feet moving almost on autopilot through the terminal. A few passengers passed her, moving faster, more aggressively toward their destinations. No one looked at her twice. To them, she was just another teenage traveler, probably heading home for the holidays or to visit college campuses. If only they knew the truth. Gate 47 came into view. The gate area was moderately crowded, not packed, but busy enough that people were beginning to form a line at the podium where the gate agent sat. Maya checked her watch, 2:58 p.m., 17 minutes until departure. Plenty of time. The airline's website said to arrive at the gate at least 30 minutes early, and she'd been that diligent, that careful about every detail. She'd been careful about everything lately. Careful about washing her hands to avoid infections. Careful about what she ate. Careful about not exposing herself to crowds during flu season. Being careful had become her religion. The gate agent was a woman who appeared to be in her late 40s or early 50s. Her nameplate read Patricia Sullivan in neat letters. Patricia had the kind of posture that suggested she'd been doing this job for a very long time. The way she sat suggested both competence and a certain weariness that came from dealing with thousands of frustrated travelers. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her expression was professionally neutral, though her eyes looked tired. Maya joined the forming line, positioning herself third in queue. In front of her was a middle-aged businessman in an expensive suit, checking his phone every few seconds. Ahead of him was an elderly couple, holding hands, the woman's head resting on the man's shoulder. They looked like they'd been together for decades. Maya felt a strange pang of emotion watching them, but she pushed it aside. She had enough emotions to manage without adding envy to the mix. The line moved at a leisurely pace. The businessman went first, his interaction with Patricia swift and efficient. A quick scan of his boarding pass, a nod, and he was through. The elderly couple went next, and Patricia's demeanor softened slightly as she interacted with them. "Have a wonderful trip," Patricia called after them warmly. Maya noticed the difference. Patricia could be warm, could soften her edges. That was somehow reassuring. Then it was Maya's turn. She stepped forward, her boarding pass extended in her hand. Up close, she could see that Patricia wore a small pin on her airline uniform, a tiny gold star that probably denoted years of service. The gate area smelled like a mixture of coffee, floor cleaner, and the indefinable scent of air travel. Behind Patricia's desk, a computer screen glowed with flight information and passenger data. "Good afternoon," Maya said quietly, handing over her boarding pass and her ID. She'd practiced being polite, being invisible, being no trouble. These had become her survival skills. Patricia took the documents without looking up immediately, setting them down on the desk and reaching for her computer mouse. She began typing, her fingers moving across the keyboard with automatic precision. Maya watched as Patricia's eyes scanned the screen, reading whatever information appeared there about Maya's booking. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Patricia's eyes narrowed. Her fingers paused over the keyboard. She leaned closer to the screen, her brow furrowing in concentration. The warm demeanor she'd shown the elderly couple evaporated like morning mist. Maya felt something shift in the air, a current of something wrong. Patricia continued to read, her face growing increasingly stern. She typed something else, then waited for the screen to update. Another frown. Then she looked up at Maya and her expression had completely transformed. It was no longer professional neutrality. It was something closer to suspicion, maybe even concern. "I'm sorry," Patricia said, her voice no longer warm. It was clipped, official. "You cannot board this flight." The words hung in the air between them like a physical thing. Maya blinked, certain she'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" "There's a flag on your account," Patricia continued, still not making eye contact, already turning to her computer screen. "A security flag. You're not going to be able to board." Maya's mouth went dry. "What? I don't understand. There must be a mistake. I have a valid ticket. I booked this flight weeks ago." Her voice, which she'd worked so hard to keep steady, began to tremble. "I have all my documents." But Patricia had already turned away, her body language making it clear the conversation was over. Behind Maya, a businessman in a gray suit moved forward, preparing to take her place. Maya stood frozen, her boarding pass still in her hand, her world suddenly spinning. "You need to speak with airport management," Patricia said without looking back. "There's nothing I can do." Maya stood frozen in place, her boarding pass still clutched in her trembling hand. The words Patricia had spoken seemed to echo in her ears, but they refused to make sense. A flag. A security flag. Those were things that happened to other people, people who'd done something wrong, people who fit some kind of profile. Not to her. Not to a 17-year-old girl, traveling alone for a medical appointment. "Excuse me." Maya's voice came out smaller than she intended, barely audible over the ambient noise of the gate area. "Patricia, could you explain what you mean by a flag? What kind of flag?" Patricia didn't turn around. She continued typing at her computer, her fingers moving with mechanical precision. "It's a security matter," she said flatly, her eyes never leaving the screen. "You'll need to speak with airport management about it. They're the only ones who can clear this." The businessman who had been next in line was now looking at Maya with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. He quickly stepped forward to take her place at the counter, silently thanking his luck that whatever was wrong wasn't his problem. Within seconds, Patricia was helping him, her voice returning to its professional, almost cordial tone as she processed his boarding pass and directed him through the gate. Maya stepped to the side, her legs feeling weak. She wasn't sure if it was her illness or pure anxiety causing her body to betray her this way. She'd been so careful, so prepared. She'd brought all her medical documentation. Her oncologist had filled out special forms for the airline. Her mother had called 3 times to make sure the flight was confirmed. How could there be a flag? Her mind raced through possibilities, each one more terrifying than the last. Had someone made a mistake with her identity? Was there a warrant? That was ridiculous. She'd never done anything illegal in her life. Her highest concern before getting sick had been maintaining her 4 GPA. The most rebellious thing she'd ever done was sneak an extra cookie from the kitchen late at night. She pulled out her phone with shaky hands and looked at her confirmation email again. Everything appeared legitimate. Flight 487, Gate 47, 3:15 p.m. departure. All correct. She refreshed her inbox to see if there were any additional messages from the airline, anything that might explain this nightmare. Nothing. More passengers had begun arriving at Gate 47. The area was filling up now as departure time drew closer. People were taking seats in the uncomfortable plastic chairs bolted to the floor, spreading out their carry-ons, settling in for the wait. Some were reading. Others were typing on laptops. A young couple held hands, looking excited about their journey. Everyone seemed so normal, so entitled to be here, so certain about their right to board. None of them were being told they couldn't get on the plane. Maya moved further to the side, trying to make herself invisible. She'd become very good at that over the past 8 months, at disappearing, at taking up as little space as possible. In hospital rooms, in chemotherapy wards, in her own home. Invisibility had felt like safety. But now, invisibility wasn't helping. People were starting to notice her, not because she was trying to get their attention, but because she was the girl standing alone at the gate, clutching her boarding pass, looking increasingly distressed. An elderly woman in a lavender coat caught her eye. This wasn't the woman from the couple at the front of the line earlier, but she had that same quality of kindness in her expression. "Are you all right, dear?" she asked, genuine concern in her voice. Maya tried to smile, but her face felt frozen. "I'm not sure," she whispered. "The gate agent said there's a flag on my account." The woman's expression shifted. She exchanged a glance with a man next to her, possibly her husband, and both of them subtly moved their carry-ons slightly further away from Maya, as if whatever flag was on her account might be contagious. The kindness in the woman's face was replaced by something more cautious, more judgmental. That hurt more than it should have. A businessman in an expensive gray suit who had been standing near the window scrolling through his phone, lowered his device and shook his head in a gesture of visible disapproval, though Maya wasn't entirely sure if he was disapproving of her situation or something on his phone. But she assumed it was her. In her heightened state of anxiety, everything felt like commentary on her failure to board. More glances, more subtle repositioning of luggage, more avoidance of eye contact. It was as if the other passengers sensed that Maya was somehow problematic, that being near her might drag them into whatever mess she'd created. They didn't know what her flag was for, but the assumption was clearly that she'd done something to earn it. Maya's eyes began to sting. She would not cry. She absolutely would not cry here in front of all these strangers at this gate, with Patricia sitting behind the counter capable of witnessing every humiliating tear. She'd cried enough over the past 8 months, in hospital bathrooms, in the oncology department, in her bedroom at midnight when she couldn't sleep because her body ached. She could hold it together for just a few more minutes. But her hands were shaking so badly now that she almost dropped her phone. She clutched it to her chest instead, pressing it against her heart as if the familiar weight of it might anchor her to reality. She thought about her mother, who was probably at home right now, nervously checking the clock, waiting for the text message that would confirm Maya had boarded safely. Her mother had taken off work early today for that specific purpose. After 8 months of hospital visits and chemotherapy cycles, and learning to live with the possibility that her daughter might die, her mother had this one thing to hope for, that Maya would make it to Boston for the experimental treatment program. The Bennett Foundation treatment, the only real shot at remission that her oncologists had offered. accessed through a lottery system selected from thousands of applicants. Maya had been chosen. Against odds that seemed impossible, she had been chosen. And now she couldn't even get on the plane. Patricia was processing boarding passes for other passengers now, working down the line of people who had begun to queue again. Maya noticed that Patricia was deliberately not making eye contact with her. She acted as though Maya didn't exist, as though the situation at the gate was completely normal. Everyone boarding except for that one girl over there, the one with the flag, the one whose right to travel had been mysteriously revoked. Maya's throat felt tight. She looked back at the gate door, the accordion tunnel that led to the airplane she was supposed to be on. Beyond it was the jetway, and beyond that was the aircraft itself, and inside that aircraft was her seat. 23B, she could almost see it in her mind's eye, that empty seat waiting for her, her tray table folded up, her oxygen mask in its compartment overhead, all ready for passenger Maya Chen. Except passenger Maya Chen was no longer welcome. She needed to call someone, her mother, or the airline's customer service, or hospital administration. Someone had to be able to explain this, to fix this, because there was no way, absolutely no way, that she was going to miss this flight, not when her life depended on it. Maya pulled out her phone with trembling fingers and dialed her mother's number. The phone rang once, twice. By the third ring, her mother answered, her voice already tinged with concern. "Maya, are you boarding already? You're supposed to be at the gate." "Mom," Maya whispered, her voice cracking. "Something's wrong. The gate agent won't let me board. She says there's a flag on my account and I need to speak with management." She could hear her mother's sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. There was a pause, the kind of terrible, heavy pause that meant her mother was processing a crisis. "What? That's not possible. Let me call the airline. Stay on the line." But before her mother could transfer to another call, a woman's voice interrupted. "Ms. Chen." Maya turned to see a TSA officer approaching her. This woman was in her 50s, with kind eyes and a name badge that read Officer Reynolds. Behind her was a younger male officer, his expression professionally neutral. "Are you Maya Chen?" Officer Reynolds asked again, more gently this time. "Yes," Maya confirmed, her phone still pressed to her ear. "Mom, there's a TSA officer here. I have to go." "Call me back immediately," her mother commanded, her voice tight with worry. "And tell them everything, sweetheart. Tell them the truth." Maya ended the call and turned to face the officers. Her heart was hammering so hard she thought it might burst through her ribs. Had she done something wrong without realizing it? Were they here to question her? Officer Reynolds's expression was compassionate. "Why don't we step over here, away from the crowds?" She gestured toward a quieter area of the terminal, near some empty seating. They moved together, the three of them, Maya sandwiched between the two officers, away from the gate area where dozens of eyes had been tracking this interaction with obvious interest. Maya caught sight of the elderly woman in the lavender coat whispering something urgent to her husband. The businessman in the gray suit was openly starring now, his phone forgotten in his hand. Once they were far enough away that their conversation wouldn't carry to the rest of Gate 47, Officer Reynolds sat down beside Maya while the younger officer remained standing, his posture relaxed but alert. "I'm Officer Reynolds," the woman said, her voice warm. "And this is Officer Tran. We're not here because you've done anything wrong. We're here because something unusual came up in the system, and we want to help you figure it out. Can you tell me what happened at the gate?" Maya's eyes filled with tears. She'd managed to hold them back at the gate, had managed to maintain some shred of dignity, but now, with this woman's kindness, the dam broke. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she tried to explain. "I have a boarding pass," she said, her voice shaking, "for Flight 487 to Boston. The agent said there's a flag on my account, but I don't know why. I've never done anything illegal. I don't understand." She sobbed, her small frame shaking with the effort of trying to hold it together. Officer Reynolds handed her a tissue from her pocket, the kind of human gesture that somehow made everything feel slightly more bearable. Maya wiped her eyes and tried to breathe deeply, the way her therapist had taught her. "Take your time," Officer Reynolds said. "There's no rush. What's so important about this flight to Boston?" Maya looked between the two officers. She could lie. She could make up some story about visiting a college or staying with family, but her mother had said to tell them the truth. And really, what did it matter anymore? Everyone at the gate was already treating her like she was dangerous somehow. "I'm going to Boston for a medical trial," Maya said quietly. "I have leukemia. I've been in treatment for 8 months, and the experimental program I've been accepted to is my best chance at remission. This flight is—" She paused, searching for words strong enough. "This flight is everything." The silence that followed felt heavy, weighted with significance. Officer Reynolds's eyes softened, and Officer Tran's professional neutrality cracked slightly, revealing genuine human compassion underneath. "How long have you had leukemia?" Officer Reynolds asked gently. 8 months, since March. I've done 6 rounds of chemotherapy. I lost my hair, lost about 30 pounds, spent more nights in the hospital than at home. The words tumbled out now, all the months of pain and fear and uncertainty pouring out of her. "But this trial, the Bennett Foundation program, they selected me, out of thousands of applications. The experimental treatment has a much higher success rate. It's my shot, you know. My actual shot at a real life again." Officer Tran cleared his throat quietly. "And the airline cleared you for this medical travel?" "Yes. My oncologist filled out all the paperwork. I have a letter from Boston Children's Hospital confirming my enrollment in the program. It's all in my carry-on." Maya pulled her small roller bag toward her. "I have all my medical records, my treatment history, everything." Officer Reynolds exchanged a meaningful look with her partner. "Let me walk back to the gate with you," she said, standing up. "I think I need to have a conversation with that gate agent." As they walked back toward Gate 47, Maya could feel dozens of pairs of eyes tracking their movement. The elderly couple, the businessman, other passengers who had picked up on the drama unfolding. But now, things felt different. A young mother who had been studiously avoiding Maya's gaze earlier now caught her eye with a sympathetic expression. Someone whispered something, and a ripple of understanding seemed to move through the waiting passengers. By the time they reached the gate, Officer Reynolds was already pulling Patricia aside. Maya could see the gate agent's face as Officer Reynolds spoke quietly but firmly to her. She could see Patricia's expression shift from defensive to confused to horrified. The officer's voice was too low for Maya to hear, but whatever was being said, it was having an effect. Patricia looked directly at Maya, and for the first time there was no suspicion in her expression. Instead, there was something that looked dangerously like pity, or perhaps guilt. Patricia's mouth opened as if to speak, but Officer Reynolds held up a hand, clearly indicating that the conversation would continue, but perhaps in a different location. Officer Tran gently guided Maya toward the gate area again. "Let's get you where you need to be," he said kindly. "But first, I'm going to make a call to my supervisor. There's clearly been some kind of miscommunication with the airline system, and we need to make sure this is resolved properly." As Officer Reynolds called Patricia away from her post, and Officer Tran made his phone call, Maya felt something shift inside her. The secret was out now. Everyone at the gate knew. She was no longer just the mysterious girl with the flag. She was the girl with leukemia, the girl fighting for her life, the girl whose very existence was at stake. And somehow that knowledge, shared, exposed, made vulnerable, felt less terrifying than the mystery had been. She stood quietly, her hand gripping her boarding pass, waiting to see what would happen next. Behind her, she heard the whispered conversations of other passengers, not whispers of judgment anymore, but whispers of understanding, of sympathy, of hope. Officer Reynolds returned to the gate with Patricia in tow, her expression firm and uncompromising. Officer Tran had completed his phone call and was now standing nearby, monitoring the situation with quiet authority. The atmosphere at Gate 47 had shifted entirely. The casual travel bustle had transformed into something more tense, more focused. "I need you to pull up Maya Chen's file again," Officer Reynolds said to Patricia, her voice leaving no room for argument. "And this time, I'm going to be standing right here while you do it." Patricia's face had gone pale. She sat down slowly at her computer terminal, her hands visibly shaking as she reached for her keyboard. The other gate attendant, a younger woman named Sarah, glanced over with curiosity but remained at her position, continuing to process boarding passes for other passengers who were pretending not to notice the drama unfolding. "I don't understand what I did wrong," Patricia said, her voice small and uncertain. "The system flagged her. I was just following protocol." "Let's see what the system says when you pull it up again," Officer Reynolds replied, her tone suggesting she suspected the original flag might have been a glitch or error. Patricia's fingers moved across the keyboard with hesitant, tentative movements. Maya watched from where Officer Tran had guided her to stand, close enough to see the computer screen, far enough away to give Patricia some privacy from the other passengers' stares. The screen loaded. Patricia's eyes scanned the information just as they had before. She began to read, her expression unchanged at first. Then her typing speed increased. She ran another search, pulled up different screens, her movements becoming more frantic. That's strange," Patricia murmured almost to herself. "What?" Officer Reynolds leaned in, looking at the screen over Patricia's shoulder. "I'm looking at the same file, the same passenger record, but the information is different than it was before." Patricia's voice trembled. "The flag is gone. Instead, there's—" She stopped mid-sentence, her entire body going rigid. "There's what?" Officer Reynolds pressed. Patricia's hand moved to her mouth. Her eyes were wide, almost disbelieving. Slowly, she turned in her chair to look at Maya, and her expression was a complex mixture of horror, shock, and something that looked frighteningly like recognition. "Pull it up," Officer Reynolds commanded, not unkindly. "Show me what you're seeing." Patricia took a shaky breath and turned back to the screen. She adjusted the monitor so that both Officer Reynolds and Officer Tran could see clearly. Maya craned her neck slightly, trying to see what had caused such a dramatic reaction. And then she saw it. At the top of the screen, in bold letters, a gold banner had appeared. The text read, "Gold VIP Clearance Level 10. The color drained from Patricia's already pale face. She looked like she might faint. Her hand gripped the edge of the desk for support. "Oh my God," Patricia breathed. "Oh my God, I couldn't have." Officer Reynolds's eyes widened as she read the designation. "Level 10, she said, her voice carrying a note of surprise. She trailed off, clearly searching for words. "That's extraordinarily high clearance." Maya's own heart began to race. VIP clearance. Level 10. She had no idea what any of this meant. She hadn't done anything to warrant special clearance. She was just a sick teenager trying to get to Boston for medical treatment. "Scroll down," Officer Reynolds instructed. "Let's see what else is there." Patricia's trembling fingers complied. The screen scrolled, revealing documents, authorizations, and contact information. Maya caught glimpses of official letterheads, some she recognized, some she didn't. There was medical documentation from Boston Children's Hospital. There were communications from airline corporate offices. There were names of high-ranking officials and government health agency representatives. Patricia's face was now completely white. She looked as though she'd been physically struck. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "This is real," Patricia said, still staring at the screen as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. "This is actually real. I blocked." She couldn't finish her sentence. Officer Reynolds straightened up, her expression shifting from confusion to something more serious, more official. "Patricia, step away from the desk," she said quietly. Patricia complied immediately, practically stumbling out of her chair. Officer Reynolds took her place, studying the screen more carefully, scrolling through documents, reading codes and designations that meant nothing to Maya but clearly meant everything to these trained professionals. Officer Tran was on his radio now, speaking quietly but urgently into the microphone on his shoulder. "Control, this is Officer Tran at Gate 47. We have a situation. Passenger with Level 10 clearance was initially flagged by gate staff. Need supervisor at terminal immediately. Affirmative." The response that came back through his earpiece was inaudible to everyone but him, but whatever was said caused him to nod with grave seriousness. "They're sending someone from airport management," Officer Tran said to Officer Reynolds, who was still scrolling through the documents on the computer screen. Patricia stood off to the side, her arms wrapped around herself, looking like she might be sick at any moment. She kept glancing at Maya with expressions of increasing mortification and confusion. It was clear she had no idea who Maya was, no understanding of why this ordinary-looking teenage girl had such extraordinary clearance ratings. "This is incredible," Officer Reynolds murmured, continuing to read. "Bennett Foundation Scholarship recipient, experimental trial authorization, medical clearance for unaccompanied minor travel." She looked up at Maya with new understanding in her eyes. "You're not just any participant in that program, are you?" But before Maya could answer, before she even fully understood the question, a woman came rushing down the terminal corridor, her heels clicking rapidly against the floor. She was in her 50s, wearing a sharp blazer with an airline logo pin, and her expression was one of controlled urgency. This was Jennifer Torres, the airport operations manager. She moved directly to Officer Reynolds, bypassing everyone else, her eyes immediately finding Maya and then shifting back to the gate agent. "Is this the passenger?" Jennifer asked Officer Reynolds, already pulling out her phone. "Yes," Officer Reynolds confirmed. "Level 10 clearance. The gate agent here mistakenly flagged her initially." Jennifer's eyes widened. She looked at Patricia with an expression that contained multitudes, disappointment, concern, and a flicker of fear, as if she suddenly realized what a massive mistake had almost been made. "Patricia," Jennifer said, her voice carefully controlled but carrying an edge of steel. "You need to step away from this gate immediately. Take your break. We'll need to have a conversation later." Patricia nodded mutely, nearly stumbling as she practically fled from the gate area, unwilling to face any more of the consequences of her actions. Jennifer's attention turned to Maya, and her expression softened, but there was something in her eyes, something that suggested she now understood something crucial about this girl, something that made this situation far more serious than a simple airline mishap. "Miss Chen," Jennifer said, her voice professional but warm, "I need to apologize on behalf of our airline for what has just occurred. We're going to make this right, and I believe there are some people who need to speak with you immediately." She was already dialing as she spoke, lifting the phone to her ear, her eyes never leaving Maya's face, studying her as if seeing her for the first time, as if Maya's presence at this gate was somehow monumental. Patricia stood in the break room adjacent to Gate 47, staring at nothing. Her hands still trembled as she clutched a cold cup of coffee that she couldn't bring herself to drink. Every few seconds, she replayed the moment in her mind, the moment she'd read those words on the screen. Level 10 VIP clearance, the Bennett Foundation Scholarship designation, the medical authorizations that bore signatures from people whose names she recognized from news articles and television programs. She'd been working for this airline for 23 years. 23 years of processing boarding passes, of managing gate operations, of dealing with thousands upon thousands of passengers. She knew the system. She understood protocol. She followed rules meticulously because that's who she was, Patricia Sullivan, reliable, professional, by the book. But she had no idea who Maya Chen was. And that terrified her. A sudden realization struck her like a physical blow. Bennett Foundation. She knew that name. Everyone knew that name. Dr. Arthur Bennett, the philanthropist, the one who'd revolutionized cancer treatment funding, who selected only the most deserving young patients for his experimental programs. The ones with the lowest survival rates but the highest potential for breakthrough outcomes. Patricia's legs nearly gave out. She sank into one of the uncomfortable plastic chairs in the break room, the reality crashing over her. "Oh God," she whispered to the empty room. "Oh my God, what did I do?" Back at the gate, Jennifer Torres had hung up her phone and was now speaking quietly but urgently with Officer Reynolds. They were standing near the computer terminal where all of Maya's VIP designation was displayed. Maya herself stood nearby, surrounded by official personnel, still not entirely understanding the significance of what had just happened. Jennifer pulled up additional files on the computer, files that contained information about the Bennett Foundation scholarship program, selection criteria, and the specific medical protocols involved. She read silently, her expression growing more grave with each passing moment. "This is a Level 10 protection designation," Jennifer said to Officer Reynolds, her voice low enough that other passengers wouldn't hear. "I've only seen this twice in my entire career. It's typically reserved for diplomatic families or individuals with government security clearances." Officer Reynolds leaned back, clearly processing this information. Why would a cancer patient have Level 10 clearance? "That's what we need to find out," Jennifer said. She turned to look at Maya, and when she did, there was a new quality to her gaze, something between reverence and concern. "Miss Chen, I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. Do you understand why you might have a Level 10 clearance on your file?" Maya shook her head slowly. "I don't even know what a Level 10 clearance is," she admitted. "I just have a medical appointment. I don't understand any of this." Jennifer and Officer Reynolds exchanged a meaningful glance. Officer Tran, who had been monitoring the gate area, stepped closer to the group. "She genuinely doesn't know," he said quietly. "Look at her. She's confused, not trying to hide something." Back in the break room, Patricia's phone rang. The sound made her jump. She looked at the caller ID, Jennifer Torres, her supervisor, the woman who signed her paychecks and evaluated her performance reviews. Patricia answered immediately. "Jennifer, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. The system flagged her and I followed protocol and I—" "Patricia," Jennifer's voice cut through her rambling, "I need you to tell me, do you know who Maya Chen is?" Patricia's mouth went dry. "No, I don't, should I?" There was a pause on the other end of the line, a heavy, significant pause that filled Patricia with dread. "Patricia, Bennett Foundation doesn't just select anyone for their experimental programs," Jennifer said slowly. "They select individuals with exceptional circumstances, medical cases so severe that traditional treatments have failed. Children, always children, who are facing almost impossible odds." Patricia closed her eyes. She'd known that, of course. Everyone knew that much about the Bennett Foundation. But the implication that this specific girl, this girl she just denied boarding to, was in one of those impossible situations. "What happened to her?" Patricia asked weakly. "She has acute myeloid leukemia," Jennifer said, and Patricia could hear something that sounded like sadness in her supervisor's voice. "She's been in treatment for 8 months. She's had 6 rounds of chemotherapy. She's being sent to Boston as a last-chance option, an experimental protocol that the Bennett Foundation has backed with their name and resources." Patricia felt tears spring to her eyes. This girl, this sick girl, had come to her gate trying to get to a treatment that might save her life, and Patricia had stopped her. Patricia had made her feel ashamed, had exposed her to public judgment, had created a scene that would be burned into her memory. "I didn't know," Patricia whispered. "No, you didn't," Jennifer agreed, and her voice was not unkind. "But that's precisely why we have these clearance designations, to protect vulnerable individuals." Meanwhile, back at the gate, Jennifer was making another call, this time to the airline's corporate headquarters in New York. She explained the situation in terse, professional language. A Level 10 clearance passenger had been mistakenly flagged by gate staff. The passenger was a minor participating in a life-saving medical program. They needed guidance on how to proceed. The response she received clearly indicated that this was not a small matter. "They want you to call the Bennett Foundation directly," Jennifer told Officer Reynolds after the call concluded. Apparently, Dr. Bennett himself requested that any complications with this passenger's travel be reported to his office immediately. Officer Reynolds's eyebrows rose. Dr. Arthur Bennett personally requested. "Yes," Jennifer confirmed, "which means this girl is not just any scholarship recipient. This girl is important to them, very important." As this conversation unfolded, more airport staff began to appear at Gate 47. A customer service manager, a director of airport operations, a security supervisor who outranked Officer Tran. They all moved with a purposefulness that suggested they understood something critical was at stake. Maya watched all of this happen around her, feeling increasingly surreal. An hour ago, she'd been a nobody, blocked from her flight, humiliated in front of strangers. And now she was surrounded by uniformed officials, all of them seeming to treat her with a level of deference that felt completely out of proportion to anything she'd done. Jennifer turned to Maya with a new kind of respect in her eyes. "Your file indicates that you're participating in Dr. Arthur Bennett's personally selected scholarship program," she said carefully. "Is that correct?" Maya nodded slowly. "Yes, I got the letter 3 months ago. It was such an honor, out of thousands of applications." "And you understand the significance of being selected by Dr. Bennett personally?" Jennifer pressed. Maya hesitated. "I mean, it's amazing. His foundation has the best success rates with experimental treatments. My oncologist said it was like winning the lottery, but I'm still just one patient, right? I'm just—" "No," Officer Reynolds said quietly, and there was something almost reverent in her voice. "You're not just any patient." Jennifer's phone rang again. This time when she answered, her entire demeanor changed. She straightened her posture. She addressed whoever was on the other end with formal respect. "Yes, sir. Of course, sir. The passenger is with me now, sir. She's safe and secure, sir." When Jennifer hung up, she looked at Maya with an expression that suggested she was seeing her for the first time, not as a sick teenager, but as someone whose survival mattered to influential people at the highest levels of medical and philanthropic circles. "That was Dr. Arthur Bennett's chief of staff," Jennifer said quietly. "They've been monitoring this situation since you were initially flagged. Dr. Bennett wants you to know that he is personally ensuring you receive every possible comfort for this flight." Patricia, still in the break room, put her face in her hands and wept. Jennifer Torres led Maya, Officer Reynolds, and Officer Tran into a private office adjacent to the main terminal. It was a small space, a manager's office with a desk, a few comfortable chairs, and a window overlooking the tarmac below. Through that window, Maya could see the airplane she was supposed to be boarding. Flight 487. Her flight, still waiting. "Please sit down," Jennifer said gently, gesturing to one of the chairs. Officer Reynolds sat beside Maya, while Officer Tran positioned himself near the door, giving them privacy but remaining present as a reassuring authority figure. Jennifer pulled up a chair directly across from Maya, close enough for intimate conversation, far enough to maintain professional boundaries. For a moment, she simply studied the girl in front of her, really studied her, taking in the slight pallor of her skin, the thinness that suggested months of illness, the brave set of her shoulders despite the exhaustion evident in her eyes. "Maya," Jennifer began carefully, "I need to tell you something that's going to help explain what happened at the gate today. But first, I need to ask you a question, and I need you to answer completely honestly. Has anyone from the Bennett Foundation ever told you why you were selected for their program?" Maya shook her head. Just that my case met their criteria, that I had a rare form of leukemia and low survival rates with traditional treatments, but that the experimental protocol had shown promise. They said I was one of 300 selected from 20,000 applications. You were, Jennifer confirmed. But Maya, you weren't selected at random. You were selected because you're the only patient in Dr. Arthur Bennett's 30-year history of running this foundation who has something extremely rare and valuable. Maya's brow furrowed in confusion. What do you mean? Jennifer took a deep breath. I'm going to tell you something that was on your clearance file, something that apparently your family has kept private. But I believe you have a right to know, especially after what happened at that gate. Officer Reynolds placed a gentle hand on Maya's shoulder, silently communicating support for whatever was coming. Dr. Arthur Bennett lost his daughter to acute myeloid leukemia in 1992, Jennifer said quietly. She was 17 years old. Her name was Margaret, and by all accounts, she was an extraordinary young woman. Brilliant, kind, determined to make a difference in the world. But the treatments available at that time weren't good enough. She died. Maya felt her throat tighten. She'd known the Bennett Foundation was founded in honor of someone, but she'd never known the specific details. For the next 30 years, Jennifer continued, Dr. Bennett devoted his life and his considerable fortune to ensuring that no other family would experience the loss he experienced. He funded research. He created the scholarship program. He worked with the best medical minds in the world to develop experimental treatments. And in all those years, all those thousands of patients he's helped, he's never been able to find someone who matches his daughter's specific characteristics. What characteristics? Maya asked softly. Age, medical profile, genetic markers, blood type compatibility with certain experimental protocols, and Jennifer paused, seeming to choose her words very carefully. And remarkable personal qualities, the kind of qualities that Dr. Bennett says his daughter had. Courage, resilience, intelligence, compassion despite suffering. Maya felt tears beginning to form. She wasn't sure if they were tears of sadness for Dr. Bennett's loss or confusion about her own significance. Dr. Bennett reviewed your application himself, Jennifer said, personally, not his staff, not his medical directors. He read your essays, your medical history, your personal recommendations, and he called your oncologist. He spent 2 hours on the phone learning about you. Officer Reynolds squeezed Maya's shoulder supportively. He told your family, who signed confidentiality agreements in exchange for the scholarship funding, that you reminded him of his daughter, Jennifer continued, that you had the same kind of spirit, the same determination to survive and to make your survival mean something, and he decided that you were going to receive the absolute best that modern medical science could offer, not as a charity case, not as one among many, but as someone personally important to him. Maya's hands were shaking now. She'd known the scholarship was prestigious. She'd known it was competitive, but she hadn't understood that it was personal, that somewhere in New York, a legendary philanthropist had looked at her application and seen something of his daughter. Why didn't anyone tell me? Maya whispered. Because, Officer Reynolds said gently, speaking for the first time since they'd entered the office. Sometimes knowing that kind of pressure, that kind of personal investment from someone that powerful, can be overwhelming. Your family, working with Dr. Bennett's counsel, decided that you should focus on fighting your illness, not on the emotional weight of being a personal symbol to a grieving man. Jennifer nodded. But today, when you were flagged at the gate, an alert was sent automatically to Dr. Bennett's office. Because you, Maya Chen, are not just another patient. You're the closest thing to closure that Dr. Arthur Bennett has had in 30 years, and he wasn't about to let you miss this flight. Maya felt overwhelmed. She looked down at her hands, trying to process this information. This entire time, she'd been fighting her illness in a kind of isolation, or so she'd thought. But she'd been protected. She'd been seen. She'd mattered to someone whose resources could move mountains. The clearance level, Jennifer explained. The reason Patricia was overridden so quickly, why corporate headquarters got involved, why Dr. Bennett's office got involved. It's all because your life is incredibly important to the people around you and to the people funding your care. So I'm not just a patient, Maya said slowly, understanding dawning. I'm, what, a symbol. You're both, Officer Reynolds said. You're a patient with a genuine medical need, and you're also someone who represents hope to a man who hasn't had much hope in 30 years. Maya looked up at Jennifer. Is Dr. Bennett going to be there, in Boston? Jennifer said. He requested updates, but he's very careful not to intrude on his patients' private medical journeys. However, he has asked that you know something. Everything has been arranged for your comfort and care. First-class accommodations. Special meals prepared according to your dietary restrictions during chemotherapy recovery. A private car to take you from the airport to the hospital. And a personal liaison from the Bennett Foundation office who will be available to you around the clock. This is insane, Maya breathed. No, Officer Reynolds said softly. This is what love looks like when it has resources. Dr. Bennett couldn't save his daughter, but he can make sure that you have every possible chance to save yourself. Jennifer stood up. I need to go speak with Patricia, the gate agent. She's devastated about what happened, and I believe an apology from you might be the most healing thing that could happen for both of you. Maya's eyes widened, but she blocked me from. She made a mistake, Jennifer said. She didn't know who you were, and that's not her fault. But knowing the truth, she's going to carry a lot of guilt. If you could find it in yourself to forgive her, it might give her the courage to continue doing a job that clearly matters to her. Maya thought about this. She thought about Patricia's stern face, about the judgment in the eyes of the other passengers, about the humiliation of being blocked from her flight. But she also thought about what Jennifer had just told her, about the powerlessness of not knowing, about the fear that something terrible might happen to someone you're supposed to protect. Okay, Maya said quietly. I'll talk to her. Patricia stood near the break room entrance when Jennifer found her, looking like a woman who had aged 10 years in the past 20 minutes. Her eyes were red from crying, and her hands were still visibly shaking. When she saw Jennifer approaching with Officer Reynolds and Maya, she straightened up, bracing herself for whatever official action was about to be taken against her. But it was Maya who spoke first. Patricia, Maya said quietly, and something in the gentleness of her voice made Patricia's eyes immediately fill with fresh tears. I wanted to talk to you about what happened at the gate. Patricia opened her mouth, but no words came out. She simply shook her head, her face crumpling with emotion. I know you didn't know who I was, Maya continued, stepping closer. And I know you were just following the protocol you thought was correct. You were doing your job. But I made you feel ashamed, Patricia said, her voice breaking. I made you stand there in front of all those people, and I didn't even try to help. I just turned away. Maya reached out and gently touched Patricia's arm. You made a mistake. We all make mistakes, but you didn't know the circumstances. And now that you do know, Maya paused, choosing her words carefully. I need you to know that I don't blame you. I forgive you. Patricia's knees seemed to give out slightly. Officer Reynolds guided her to a nearby chair, and Patricia sat down heavily, tears streaming freely down her face. Thank you, Patricia whispered. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for caring enough to feel bad about it, Maya replied. A lot of people wouldn't have. That says something good about you. Within the next 30 minutes, the situation at Gate 47 had been completely transformed. Word had spread through airport staff about what had occurred, and the atmosphere of the gate area had shifted from routine travel bustle to something more ceremonial, more respectful. Jennifer personally escorted Maya back to the gate. Officer Reynolds walked beside her, and Officer Tran trailed slightly behind, still ensuring her safety and comfort. Airport maintenance staff had cleaned the gate area extra carefully. A supervisor had been assigned to personally oversee Maya's boarding. Even Sarah, the other gate attendant, had been briefed on the situation and was treating Maya with a level of deference that would have seemed strange an hour earlier. "We've upgraded you to first class," Jennifer announced as they reached the gate. "Seat 1A, it's the most comfortable position on the aircraft. There's a bed-like recline, extra privacy, and the flight attendants will be able to monitor your comfort throughout the flight." "But I already paid for economy," Maya started to protest. "Consider it an apology," Jennifer said warmly, "and a welcome from our airline to someone whose journey truly matters." As the gate area slowly filled with other passengers for the flight, Maya became aware of the looks directed her way. But they were different now. These weren't looks of judgment or suspicion. These were looks of sympathy, understanding, and something that bordered on reverence. Word had somehow spread through the terminal, perhaps from passengers who'd been at the gate earlier, perhaps from airport staff, that the girl who'd been denied boarding earlier was seriously ill and traveling for life-saving treatment. The elderly couple from earlier, the ones who'd pulled away from her in confusion, approached hesitantly. "We heard about your situation," the woman said gently. "We wish you all the best. We'll be on the flight and we'll be thinking of you." The businessman in the gray suit, the one who'd shaken his head in judgment, waited until the elderly couple had moved away, then quietly approached Maya. "I'm sorry for the assumptions I made earlier," he said simply. "I wish you strength and healing." Even passengers who had no direct interaction with the earlier drama seemed to sense that something significant was happening. The gate took on an almost ceremonial quality as people boarded. Officer Reynolds stayed with Maya right up until boarding began. "You're brave," the officer said simply. "More brave than most adults I know. I hope this treatment goes well. I really do." "Thank you for helping me," Maya said, squeezing the officer's hand. "For listening, for understanding." As the boarding process officially began, Sarah called out, "First-class passenger Maya Chen, we're ready for you to board whenever you're ready." There was something profound about being called forward by her own name, about being acknowledged as someone special, someone worthy of notice. Maya stood up, rolling her small carry-on behind her. She took one last look at the gate area, at Patricia, who was watching from a distance with tears still streaming down her face, at Jennifer, who gave her an encouraging nod, at Officer Reynolds, who placed her hand over her heart in a gesture of respect. Then Maya turned toward the jet bridge. The moment she stepped into the accordion tunnel that connected the airport to the aircraft, everything felt different. The fluorescent lights, the faint smell of jet fuel and cleaning supplies, the slight hum of machinery. It was all so ordinary, so mundane, and yet it felt sacred to her. This was the pathway to her future. This was the way forward. The flight attendants at the entrance to the first-class cabin greeted her with genuine warmth. "Welcome aboard, Maya," the senior flight attendant, a woman named Claire with kind eyes and warm smile, said. "We're so glad you're with us today. Please, let me help you to your seat." Seat 1A was exactly as Jennifer had described. A luxurious, oversized seat with a lie-flat position, plenty of space around it, and a direct view through a large window of the tarmac and runway beyond. Claire helped Maya arrange her carry-on in the overhead compartment and ensured she was comfortable in her seat. "Can I get you anything before we push back?" Claire asked. "Water, juice, a blanket, anything at all." "Just a window," Maya said softly, looking out at the view. "I just want to see us take off." As the remaining passengers boarded and the cabin filled with the sounds of settling in, Maya sat in her seat and watched the ground crew making final preparations. She could see the airport terminal in the distance, could see the gate she'd been denied entry to just an hour earlier. The captain's voice came through the intercom. "Welcome aboard Flight 487. We're expecting smooth skies all the way to Boston. We're particularly proud to have an exceptional passenger on board today. Sit back, relax, and let us take care of you." Maya wasn't sure if the captain's message was specifically about her or a standard greeting, but she chose to believe it was meant for her. As the aircraft pushed back from the gate, she felt tears streaming down her face. But these were not tears of fear or despair. These were tears of relief, of gratitude, of hope. The tarmac began to move beneath the plane's wheels. The airport terminal grew smaller and more distant. She was going to Boston. She was going to fight. She was going to survive. The wheels left the ground. The plane lifted into the late afternoon sky, climbing steadily toward the clouds. Maya pressed her face closer to the window, watching Denver fall away beneath her, watching the earth transform into a patchwork of lights and roads and neighborhoods. She pulled out her phone and sent a message to her mother. "I'm in the air, on my way to you. They upgraded me to first class. And Mom, you were right. I told the truth and everything changed." In the first-class cabin, alone in the cocoon of luxury and safety, Maya Chen closed her eyes and allowed herself to breathe deeply for the first time in hours. She was going to make it. 2 weeks after Maya boarded Flight 487, the world didn't know her story yet. She was safely in Boston, settled into the pediatric oncology ward at Boston Children's Hospital, beginning her experimental treatment protocol. Her mother sat beside her hospital bed at night, holding her hand while the IV drip delivered the carefully calibrated medications designed to target her cancer at the cellular level. During the day, medical teams monitored her response, adjusted her care, and spoke in careful, optimistic terms about her prognosis. Maya was focused on survival, not on celebrity. But back in Denver, other wheels were turning. A journalist named David Chen, no relation to Maya, worked for a major news organization covering stories of human interest and inspiration. He'd been at Denver International Airport that day, waiting for a connecting flight when he'd overheard airport staff discussing the incident at Gate 47. A sick girl, a gate agent's mistake, a miraculous upgrade, a story about second chances and compassion. It intrigued him. David began doing research. He filed information requests with the airport. He spoke with passengers who'd been on Flight 487. He contacted the airline's public relations department. Piece by piece, he assembled the narrative. And when he learned about the Bennett Foundation connection, about Dr. Arthur Bennett and his 30-year quest to help young cancer patients, about his deceased daughter Margaret, about Maya being selected as someone who reminded him of his lost child, that's when David realized he had a story that needed to be told. He reached out to Maya's family for comment. Initially, they were hesitant. Privacy had been important to them. But ultimately, they agreed that Maya's story might inspire others facing similar diagnoses, might shine light on the Bennett Foundation's work, and might even highlight the importance of kindness in everyday situations. The article appeared on a Tuesday morning, published simultaneously across multiple news platforms. The headline read, "From denied boarding to first class, how one girl's courage connected her with a philanthropist's 30-year mission to save lives." Within hours, the story had been shared over 2 million times on social media. By Wednesday, it was trending nationwide. Major news networks picked it up. Morning shows requested interviews with Maya, which she declined, preferring to focus on her treatment. They requested interviews with Jennifer Torres and Officer Reynolds, who shared their perspectives on the importance of protocols and human compassion. They requested interviews with Dr. Arthur Bennett, who released a carefully written statement about Maya's progress and his hope for her recovery. And they requested an interview with Patricia Sullivan. Patricia had been reassigned to a desk position while the incident was investigated. She'd spent 2 weeks waiting to hear if she would be fired, if her 23-year career would end in disgrace. But the airport's investigation, combined with testimonies from Officer Reynolds and Jennifer Torres, concluded that she'd made an honest mistake based on a system glitch. She hadn't acted with malice. She'd followed protocol. And when the truth came out, she'd immediately recognized the severity of her error. She was cleared to return to the gates. But now, with the story going viral, Patricia found herself at the center of a national conversation about airport security, about compassion, and about second chances. The TV interview was conducted in the airport terminal, right near Gate 47. Patricia sat across from the interviewer, visibly nervous, her hands clasped tightly together. "Tell us what was going through your mind when you denied Maya Chen boarding," the interviewer asked. Patricia took a shaky breath. "I was doing what I thought was my job. The system had flagged her, and I didn't have the information to understand why. But looking back, I should have asked more questions. I should have been more curious about the situation instead of just following the protocol mechanically." "Do you regret your actions?" "Every single day," Patricia said, tears beginning to form. "But what I regret more is that I didn't handle it with compassion. This girl, this brave, sick girl, came to my gate trying to get to a treatment that might save her life. And instead of seeing her as a human being who needed help, I saw her as a problem to be managed." "How do you feel about Maya's forgiveness?" Patricia's voice broke. "I don't deserve it, but I'm grateful for it every moment of every day. She showed me grace when she had every right to be angry. She's 17 years old, fighting leukemia, and she had the spiritual maturity to forgive someone who treated her poorly. That's something I'll carry with me for the rest of my life." The interview went viral as well. Comments poured in from people around the world. Some praised Patricia's honesty. Others shared their own stories of times they'd been treated poorly by service workers. Still others used the story to start conversations about systemic kindness, about how institutions needed to be designed to bring out the best in people, not the worst. The airline, recognizing both the crisis and the opportunity, announced a complete overhaul of its VIP clearance system. New training protocols were implemented. Gate agents received education not just on procedures, but on compassion and human dignity. The airline created a scholarship fund in Maya's name to support young cancer patients seeking specialized treatment. Dr. Arthur Bennett held a press conference, something he rarely did. Standing at a podium with photographers clicking away, he spoke about his daughter Margaret. He spoke about the 30 years of work the Bennett Foundation had done. And he spoke about Maya Chen. "Maya represents everything my daughter stood for," Dr. Bennett said, his voice steady but emotional. "Courage in the face of adversity, determination to survive, and most importantly, the capacity to show grace and forgiveness to those who have wronged you. She is not just a patient, she is a teacher, and the world is better because she exists." In Boston, Maya watched these interviews from her hospital bed. She saw Patricia's tears. She saw her story trending on Twitter and Facebook. She heard her name spoken by newscasters and celebrities and ordinary people who felt moved by her journey. It was overwhelming. But there was one person she wanted to talk to more than anyone else. She called Patricia. The gate agent answered on the second ring, her voice trembling. "Maya, is this really you?" "Hi, Patricia," Maya said softly. "I saw your interview." "Oh God, I hope that was okay. I didn't mean to make the story all about me." "Patricia," Maya interrupted gently, "I wanted to call because I want you to know something. This story, all of this attention, it's not just about me fighting cancer or about the gate agent's mistake. It's about something bigger. It's about what happens when we choose compassion over judgment, when we forgive instead of holding grudges, when we see each other as human beings instead of problems." Patricia was crying on the other end of the line. "You made a mistake," Maya continued, "but you also showed me what genuine remorse looks like, and I got to show you what forgiveness looks like. And now millions of people are watching that exchange and being reminded that we're all human. We all mess up sometimes, and we're all capable of doing better." "Thank you," Patricia whispered. "Thank you for calling me. Thank you for existing. Thank you for changing my life." When they hung up, Maya lay back in her hospital bed and looked out the window at the Boston skyline. Her treatment was progressing well. Her oncologist was cautiously optimistic. The experimental protocol seemed to be responding to her body in positive ways. But more than that, something had shifted in the world around her. An airline had changed its policies. Gate agents were receiving new training on compassion. A foundation had created a scholarship in her name, and millions of people had been reminded that grace and forgiveness were possible, even in the worst circumstances. A 17-year-old girl with leukemia hadn't just boarded a plane. She'd sparked a conversation about human kindness that was changing institutions and individual hearts. The bigger picture wasn't about one girl's medical journey. It was about what happens when one person decides that forgiveness matters more than blame, when one person chooses to see the humanity in someone who wronged her. That was the real story. And it was just beginning.